Throughout all of the FNAF series, there are a couple of characters who I would call required. Essentially, take them out of the story and it's no longer the same story. These include William Afton and Henry Emily, partners in business, less so in crime, Michael Afton, the product of capitalism and trauma, and Charlotte Emily, the malicious but not really because haha they're a good guy spirit. But one character I see people constantly throw onto that list is Elizabeth Afton, aka Circus Baby. And this is something I am strongly against. As I said in my review of Sister Location, if you cut Baby's story out of the FNAF timeline, all that really happens is Michael isn't a walking corpse, and there's 2 less characters in the vents during FNAF 6. So I decided that this video was going to be all about my dislike and disappointment in the character of Circus Baby, and where things went wrong with her. And it all comes down to this statement. FNAF as a series didn't need a new main villain when she arrived, and it doesn't have anything for her now. Let me explain. We're jumping back in time real quick to FNAF World Update 2. Update 2 on its own is a fun time, sure, nudge nudge nudge, but the biggest thing it did was tease the next mainline FNAF game. We were introduced to a character a lot of people call Desk Man because, look at him. But it's more than likely this character is Henry, William's business partner who was responsible for making many of the characters we know now. Henry explains that his mind isn't well, and that he created something awful. Her name is Baby. The lights go out, and Circus Baby speaks for the first time. When we cut back, Henry is dead, a pool of blood under his head. This was our introduction to the character, and I have to admit it's a weird one, if only because while FNAF 4 gave us the beginning of the story, we still had one loose end dangling by that point. We knew that Springtrap had survived the fire at the end of FNAF 3, and now here's Scott setting up a new character as a main antagonist of sorts. Whatever this meant, it probably meant we weren't going to be seeing Springtrap again soon. And we were right. Across Sister Location's marketing, Circus Baby's clown face was plastered everywhere. Scott was making it clear that she was going to be our main antagonist. And then, Sister Location came out, and she just wasn't there. Kind of. Instead of seeing the main animatronic for most of the game, we only ever hear Baby's voice as she baits Michael into trusting her. On night 5 then, we finally do see her body in a scrapped and docile state. We then get the scooped ending, and I have to say, the reveal that Circus Baby had been assumed into the form of Ennard, rather than being the bright doll we saw in all the marketing, was a pretty neat twist. I'm sure people didn't expect Baby to have a second form, especially one we see much more of than her first one. But I could live with this. I personally find Ennard to be one of my favorite characters in the series, and one of the scariest. So I think in the next game, having the spirit of Elizabeth Afton be combined with this mess of different animatronics as some kind of horrific monster would be great. Oh no! Instead of giving Ennard another game to really show how terrifying they are, Scott opted to do something very strange. Even back then, Circus Baby's absence from the game she was supposedly the main villain of was noticed and criticized. So Scott, I imagine, thought, I need to make it up to these guys and make Baby an actual threat this time around. So he decided to separate Ennard and Baby, giving us Molten Freddy and Scrap Baby. 2 characters I feel almost nothing for. Granted, Molten Freddy in concept is cool, it's just that the execution leaves a lot to be desired. Ennard stops feeling unique once the bear's face is on, you know? It ended up making a cool and original character feel painfully derivative of just about every other game in the series, when Pizza Sim is probably the most unique one among them. As for Scrap Baby, I gotta be real, putting her and Afton in the same game did not help with the fact that both are pining for that main villain role. Between Afton and Baby, Baby is honestly probably the main villain of Pizza Sim, but him just being there overshadows her completely. We hadn't seen Springtrap since FNAF 3, and now he's back, the original killer, and he's out for revenge. Compare that to the absentee star of a PowerPoint presentation, and it's no wonder people fixated more on Scraptrap than Scrap Baby. Her design, for one thing, just never really stuck with me all that well. Despite everything going on, it just felt kinda plain. Like, I could care less about the giant claw or the roller skates. Scraptrap is missing a forearm, and Lefty is black and red. Those are like 2 of the best colors. And honestly, beating the final day and hearing Baby start up a villainous monologue, talking about what she was made to do, and making her dad proud, it honestly just comes off as kinda pathetic. Considering her dad is right there, and he doesn't say anything during this. I guess some people are intimidated by it, but I just can't find anything scary or cool about it. It's not intimidating, it just comes off as, give me one more shot at a cool line, I can do it. So while Pizza Sim did make her more visible throughout and actually made her kinda share that main villain status with Scraptrap, it still sunk because she's just not as strong as Afton is at carrying a game like that. On top of that, Pizza Sim in general was just not a good choice for bringing her back to make her a more present villain. Sure, she's there, but the only times you ever see her are during the salvage minigame or when she jump scares you. Oh, and also when she burns to death, and if you're lucky, a death screen. And that's it. Since then, Circus Baby has appeared in 3 titles, and Scrap Baby has appeared in 1. Circus Baby and Scrap Baby were both in Ultimate Custom Night. It is painfully sad that Circus Baby's first ever jump scare is a shaking PNG. Their mechanics aren't that difficult. I'd say Scrap Baby is the harder character to deal with, just because it can be very hard to pay attention to her when a lot is happening around you. With Circus Baby, when she appears in the hallway, you have to buy her plush at the prize counter. She's not stopped by closed doors. With Scrap Baby, she'll randomly appear in front of you with a salvage minigame thing going on. She's harmless until she moves. When you see her position change, shock her to send her away. In Help Wanted, Circus Baby is the host of a Night Terrors segment where you have to hide in the closet when she sees you, but otherwise keep the doors open to prevent dolls that look like her from killing you. The fact that these dolls are more prevalent in-game than her should be nothing short of embarrassing. And the worst part is that Help Wanted gave Ennard his own boss fight minigame, and it's the best! It's so incredibly scary and captures everything that made Ennard a strong main villain. This is a character who would not be weakened by Springtrap being present in the same game. This is. The final appearance for Baby as it stands is in FNAF AR, a woeful final destination for a character I do not really care for. But it's not like Scott stopped trying to make Baby as a character work. She also appears in the novel trilogy, and there's a sort of version of her in Fazbear Frights that I'm going to be talking about too. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, Circus Baby is introduced at the very end of the Twisted Ones and is the main villain of the 4th Closet. In this series, Baby has her original form that we see in the games at one point, but for the majority of the story she appears much more humanoid, even disguising herself as a human at first. This Baby was a robot that Henry Emily was making to mimic his daughter Charlotte as an adult. However, William Afton stole it and made modifications to it. While he was redesigning her, Elizabeth Afton was killed by her and the robot became possessed. Now possessed by Elizabeth but still sharing all of Charlotte's memories, as well as Circus Baby's programming, she kills Henry's sister, attempts to kill some of the main characters of the story, and is killed when Charlotte stabs through herself and Baby with the knife Henry had used to commit suicide. Whew. This version of Baby is actually probably the best version of the character. She's very active throughout and has a good plotline involving her imitating Charlotte. But conversely, you could argue this is just more of Baby not actually being a present main villain. You could argue that. On top of that, there's just enough about her that's different that makes me think of this Baby as a completely different character, even if both are Elizabeth Afton. For one, this version of Baby is actively William's henchman, which we never see in the games. Second, Baby has a breakdown towards the end of the book about how she tries so hard to gain her father's approval, but William is more interested in Charlotte. I like this, but it's still different, worth mentioning. But the third thing, and the thing that I don't like, is how she actively hits on certain characters, like John or Carlton. I think what Scott wanted out of this character was hindered by the backstory he gave her. He really shot himself in the foot. Baby's backstory in the games and books are practically identical, but making her try to kiss a guy is just odd. I mean, she's still a robot and she's still possessed by Elizabeth. The next version of Baby is Eleanor, or Renelle. It's the version of Baby we see in the Fazbear Frights universe. Another more humanoid version of Baby, Eleanor is the main antagonist of the Fazbear Frights series, first appearing in the Book 1 story To Be Beautiful, and last appearing in the epilogue to Prankster, where she was killed. And here's the thing, this version of the character is interesting, but completely unexplored. We don't know her backstory, we don't know if she's possessed, but she seems to have a deep understanding of agony and is responsible for a lot of the happenings in the Fright series. It is revealed she's the one who was scratching at Delilah's windows and whispering in her ear in 1:35 a.m., not her doll Ella like the story posits. It's revealed that she was the one who put human eyes and teeth in the plush trap chaser in the story Out of Stock, and it's revealed that she was the one who pushed Sam onto the train tracks in the story Blackbird. This one is kind of funny because Sam actually survived that, which I guess just shows that Eleanor isn't always that good at, killing. And here's the thing, this is another example of Baby having a strong presence as a main villain, but it also kinda smells. I mean, the big reveal she was there the whole time, that's literally the first Puss in Boots movie, and the second, but that one's better. In this case, these stories don't need Eleanor present to be good, and in some cases, it actually makes them worse. especially with the plush trap chaser. So I mean, here we have a humanoid clown girl animatronic who is loyal to Afton, yes, but also doesn't seem to be possessed by anyone. Can I even call this thing Baby? All in all, across all three of her major forms throughout the series, I consider Baby to be a massive letdown. A character who was never utilized properly, and one who I'm not really sure was worthy of that main villain status in the first place. I mean, let's be real. The only thing separating Elizabeth from any of the other dead kids is her father. So when you make that what makes her unique, all you really get is a character who can only ever exist in the shadow of another. And trust me, Afton casts a large shadow. Is Circus Baby the worst FNAF character? No, not by a long shot. In a series this big, she actually ends up being one of the better ones. But to say that her appearances all have something about them that just feels either incomplete or wrong is an understatement. Mainline Baby comes off as underutilized. Novel Baby comes off as a massive missed opportunity for a better character. And Eleanor comes off as a shoehorn, wedging herself into stories that are better off without her. It's honestly a little sad that Scott tries so hard to make this character work, but she never ends up being quite as perfect as she might have hoped. Maybe I'm right about 46 being Elizabeth, and we can see a redemption. But until then, I'm DMuted. Be sure to subscribe and share this video around. Peace.